Okay guys, welcome to tonight's video. Let me get the usual stuff out of the way first. If you are watching this on Facebook, then please do hit like, comment, share it. Drop a comment, let me know where you're from. Just say hi. I always appreciate interaction on the posts. And, like I say, drop a comment, let me know where you're from, hit like, etc, etc. If you are listening to this on YouTube, because this will be uploaded to YouTube, then don't forget to subscribe again, hit like on the videos, share them with your friends. If you're listening to this on a podcast, because this will also be uploaded as a podcast, if you'd like to listen on the go, then again, make sure you share it with your friends. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you get a chance, because again, whatever you're listening on, just find some way of interacting on them, because I love the interaction. It's good feedback. I like to know if people have got any benefit from it, and it does just help the exposure of the whatever you're listening on, the podcast or the video, whatever, and it just helps it to go out to more people, which is obviously my goal. So please do that. Hi Paul, thanks for joining us. Bottom of Lake Michigan. Nice. Probably different to where I am right now in the UK. Hope the weather's better than it is here. Although today's been alright actually, for once. So yes, all that's out of the way, I think. So we can get on. I said keep the likes coming, guys. Thank you very much. Love the interaction, always appreciate it. And even if you're not watching this live as well, you can still comment, you can still drop in your questions. They don't have to relate it to this video. It can be any topic you want. Again, even if you're not watching live, doesn't matter. If you watch it on the replay, it's always nice to hear people watching it on a replay. So just say, I'm watching it on the replay. Comment on it. It's always cool to hear. Anna. Hi, Anna. Nice to see you again. Always tuning in. Thank you. Happy Friday to you too. I'll get to that, actually. That's a good one. My favourite. What is my favourite type of meal? I'm a sucker for barbecue food. It's one of my favourite foods, American barbecue food. Love that kind of food. But then again, I also love Chinese and Thai food. I'm really not picky when it comes to this. I'm not gonna lie. Right, okay, let's get into some content. So as always, I'm gonna natter on about a topic for a little bit. And if you have any questions, again, don't have to relate it to what I'm speaking about now. Just whack them in and I'll get to them eventually, and we can have a chat, or just any comments that you may have found on what I'm talking about, or any of your experiences as well. Do let me know. So I want to make kind of two smoked beef brisket, Paul. Yes, love it. Love that kind of stuff. Ribs, pulled pork. Oh, yeah. If I could eat any food all the time, it'd probably be that. I'm not going to lie. Do love a bit of barbecue type food. So, two main topics I want to talk about on this, should you have a cheat meal? First, I want to preface it, which I think is a really big point as well, in that I'm not a big fan of framing them as a cheat meal. Now, I get that most people use this and it's innocuous, it's harmless. But I think for a lot of people, it just doesn't help them to sort of build a good relationship with food. It almost puts a negative connotation on this meal or whatever, or on this type of food. And the truth is, there are no foods that are inherently bad or inherently fattening. Not in isolation on their own, okay? There just happens to be some foods that are higher in calories or have less nutrients than other kinds of foods, okay? And this kind of means that there are no real foods or meals that are cheating on your diet, because in isolation, they have no effect, if you know what I mean. We have to look at the diet as a sum of its parts and in its whole, okay? So, no real foods or meals are really cheating, because in isolation, they're not going to have a significant impact, right? And that's why I like it, because, I like to look at it this way, because then there's almost no guilt. I feel a lot of people, when they get into these cycles of there's just a lot of guilt around these meals sometimes, and they get stuck in this cycle. Whereas if we don't frame them as cheats and as good or bad, there's less guilt involved, because there should be no guilt involved, right? These are just foods that you enjoy eating. Why should you feel guilty about eating them? They just happen to be a bit higher in calories and less and lower in nutrients than some other foods. You know, there should be no guilt here. Yeah, pork, that's a good way. You know, when you were using a coach, you called it like a reward meal. Sure, I like that better, definitely. Again, there's no sort of negative connotation with framing it that way. And that's a big point that I want to make, because a common practice that I see around these kind of cheat meals is a restrict binge cycle. People get into these cycles where they restrict, either a food or just types of food in general, and then they binge. And they just get stuck in that cycle. And I feel a lot of that is because of this perception of these foods that we have. We perceive them as bad or as cheats. So, and you know, these cycles can really undo the hard work that you put in on a consistent basis. You know, if you're the type of person that restricts all week and then makes up for that at the weekend, that can absolutely knock out your progress for the week. Absolutely. And it's a common thing, especially if you do that for the whole weekend. And what I want to kind of like challenge people with this concept, if you're one of these types of people, is what would happen if you happen to perceive these foods differently? What would happen if we just looked at these foods as, you know, these are just foods that we enjoy. They're, like I said before, they're just a bit higher in calories than the foods that we eat normally. They're a bit lower in nutrients. And, you know, we enjoy them, but maybe we should keep them to infrequent occasions, right? Because why? Because they're just a bit easier to overeat. They lack nutrients, they're higher in calories. So maybe we shouldn't eat them as often as we eat these other foods, right? Now, if you looked at it that way, what difference would that make? You know, do you think you would be less likely to binge on them? Do you think you'd be less likely to feel guilty about eating them? Would you be less likely to, you know, restrict them for so long and then eventually either give in to them and go on a crazy binge because you've been telling yourself for so long that you can't have them, or also sort of go on just a generic binge because you've been restricting yourself so much that you've just built up this kind of diet fatigue, and now it's, oh, screw it, whatever, I'm just going to go for it. Because I find sort of like, if you frame it this way and you just kind of just say like, I just choose to have them on occasion. I'm not restricting myself. I just choose to have them occasionally because this just basically aligns with my goals more. Because I know that if I eat them more frequently, it's probably not going to help me, right? So it's like a different way of looking at it, if you know what I mean. And this has been shown in research studies where we have sort of literature on this, studies on this, where they compare what we call like flexible dieting to sort of strict and rigid dieting. So in the research, I'm just going to define these quickly. In the research, flexible dieting is kind of, it's sort of defined as having planned, controlled indulgences, okay? So just having these indulgences that are planned and on occasion, right? And strict or rigid dieting would be sort of looking at foods as black and white, sort of good or bad, banning foods, banning food groups, being restrictive in that sense, okay? And what we find with a lot of these studies is we find that flexible dieting and having these planned indulgences are associated with better long-term weight maintenance. They are associated with less incidence of disordered eating and also better management of cravings, okay? And I think this kind of makes sense, right? Because like I've just talked about before, if we restrict, you know, it can be hard not to binge, right? And it can be hard not to increase these cravings. Whereas if we have sort of like a little bit and we have it often, as long as they're planned and controlled, it just kind of makes it easier to stick to, right? And this is what I always preach to my clients, but just to people in general, is what we call like the 80-20 rule. So this is where basically you focus 80% of your calories. So, well, let's just say 80% of the foods that you eat come from whole, minimally processed foods. you know, the foods that we know are quote unquote good, right? Fruits, vegetables, legumes, you know, lean sources of protein, good healthy fats, things like that, right? And then the other 20% can come from whatever you want, okay? Just fill that gap with whatever you want. Now, the difference in fat loss will be zero if you had eaten 100% of those good foods, okay? As long as the calories were the same, there will be no difference in fat loss. And there should be no difference in health, right? As long as, like we've said, the majority of the foods are coming from those good foods, those whole, minimally processed foods, you're being active, you're maintaining or reducing your weight, or keeping a good weight, you're being active, sleeping well, recovering well, there should be no difference there in health either. And what I find for a lot of people is this massively increases adherence. I know for me, having a little bit often stops me binging, okay? If I have like a little bit every so often, it stops me getting into that restrict binge cycle where I'm like, oh, I've just wanted to have it for so long, I've told myself I can't, and now what, you know what, I'm gonna have some, and then I'll go crazy. If I have a little bit, it keeps me from doing that, essentially. And I find that helps a lot of other people too. Now, it won't be the same for everyone, but I find that for me and for a lot of people that does really help. And again, we see this in the research in general too. So, you know, I've sort of blabbed on for a bit there, but, you know, what would I kind of suggest for most people in these, you know, around these kind of like cheat meals, etc.? So the first and foremost, I would say stop framing them as a cheat. You know, they're not a cheat. They're just different types of food that you don't eat as often, okay? There's no guilt involved in eating them, or there shouldn't be. So it's not a cheat, essentially, okay? I would say if you're gonna have these kind of meals, you know, people say, oh, do I have them as a day or a meal? I would highly recommend not having a day of this kind of eating, just because it is very, very easy to get out of hand. I would focus more on meals and having like we said before in the flexible diet, have a planned meal where, you know what, I eat the kind of foods that I really want to eat, but I don't eat during the week maybe, or I don't eat as often, okay, and have them kind of planned. And it really is sort of, you know, independent, sort of like dependent on the person. You know, can you handle these higher calorie meals? You know, are you able to have this meal and go back to your normal way of eating? Or do you find that if you have this meal, it just sets off a cascade of events where one meal turns into two, and that turns into a day, and that turns into a weekend, and all of a sudden 5 days later, you're finally getting back on track? If that's happening a lot, maybe it is time to, you know, put the brakes on this kind of, you know, having these indulgences, and that's okay. You know, not everybody has that relationship with food straight away that they can do this, if you know what I mean. It's okay to say, you know what, for a while, maybe I'm just gonna stick with this way of eating I've got now, and I'm gonna maybe put these foods and these meals, I'm gonna frame it as cheats just because people know what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm gonna put them on the back burner for a little bit, just while I build a better relationship with food, and then I can start adding these back in. That's totally fine, okay? No problem with that at all. And what I also kind of want, so I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I'm saying everything that I want to say, is, you know, if you can plan it in and you can handle it and you can, you know, I want to emphasize the planned and controlled. They are planned, they're controlled to an extent, you know, it's not free for all. And you can get back on track and not let it derail you. Why wouldn't you do it? Do you know what I mean? Like, again, it's just adherence. We know adherence is the #1 factor in long-term weight loss. You have to be able to do this consistently for a long time, okay? So, and for a lot of people, having these meals, you know, these occasions where, you know, we go out and we're not worried about what we're eating, or maybe we, you know, no one's saying go to a wedding and eat salad. No one's saying have a birthday and don't have a birthday cake, right? Like, we still want to enjoy these kind of things without stressing about what we're eating. And if you can do that and not let it derail you and push you into a binge, why wouldn't you do it, right? Like, you know, life's too short, and again, it's just all about adherence. You know, we enjoy eating these foods, and we enjoy these social occasions around these foods. So if you can do it, and it helps you to stick to your plan, and doesn't derail you, why wouldn't you do it? You know, I do it. You know, I'll either, most of the time I'll have sort of like a Chinese takeaway on a Sunday evening, or I'll go out on a Saturday night, have some food and or drinks, etc. But I do it because I know that I can handle it, right? I can have that and I can get back to my normal way of eating. I can even account for it, okay? Like, you know, I will, for example, if I'm going out on a Saturday night, I'll eat less in the day to account for I'm going to eat more at night, or I'll eat less the day after, sort of thing. Like, I can plan it in and around what I'm doing. So I'm quite happy to have these meals, etc., because I know that I can do it, right? And this can take practice, it can take time. But again, don't worry if that's not you right now and that you have to work on that a bit before you can do it. Because again, that's fine. Build a better relationship with food first. I also want to say as well, this is different kind of, because I hear some people say like, oh, that's just kind of like punishing yourself, you know, but it's not, right? Planning sort of your calories in advance or afterwards is different to starving yourself, to punish yourself for eating these foods, and sort of things like, you know, exercising in excess to burn off these bad meals. That's totally different, okay? If you can plan and control it, calorie cycling, I've talked about it before, it's a great way of including these meals and these foods and still seeing results. Basically, think of your calorie allowance like a bank account over a week, and you can split it over the week however you like. Easiest example is you can eat less in the week, save more calories for the weekend, and you can actually eat more calories at the weekend, and as long as the weekly average is the same, it doesn't matter how you split them up day to day, okay? Quick side note. Okay, so hey Sandy, nice to see you. Thanks for tuning in and saying hi. So the biggest sort of takeaways that I want people to take from this is how you sort of view food and how you perceive food, okay? You know, do you see it as, you know, these foods are good, these foods are bad, these foods need to be banned or restricted? Or do you see it kind of like foods sit on like a continuum? And we have some foods that are higher in calories, and we have some foods that are lower in calories. And we have other foods that have more nutrients, and we have foods that have less nutrients, right? And do we see that, you know what, we're going to eat, and because of this, we're going to eat some of these foods, you know, these foods that are lower in calories and higher in nutrients, we're going to eat these the majority of the time. And the foods that are higher in calories and have less nutrients, we're still going to eat them because we like them and we enjoy them. But we acknowledge that, you know what, maybe we shouldn't eat them too often because they're not got as many nutrients, and they also might, you know, they're easy to overeat and they're higher in calories. But we're still going to keep them in because we enjoy them, and we know that if we, you know, keep sort of our calorie balance in the right sort of range, we will still see results and be healthy. But we're going to keep them to a minimum, and we're going to focus on the other foods as well. And we're going to get that good balance between the two, because that is what it's all about. Because that difference in mindset is massive, absolutely massive. And it can be a huge sort of determinant of long-term success, right? How you frame these foods, how you frame these meals. And, you know, because again, it just goes down to adherence. Because if you can get into that mindset, you're much more likely to stick to it, and you're much more likely to see results because you're keeping these instances to a minimum too, okay? Okay, and my mouth is starting to go dry and I've waffled on for I don't know how long. 19 minutes, it's a good one. But I've covered everything, I think, and more that I wanted to say. I think. Well, that's all I'm going to say. So, if anyone has any questions at all, any comments, you know, any experiences that you found, you know, with this kind of thing, having these meals, these foods, etc., please drop them in. Again, if you're still here, if you're watching the replay, hit like. Doesn't matter if you have already done it. It just pushes the video out to more people. Comment, say hi, share it, etc. Much appreciated. And I think that's it. I'll do the standard 30 seconds if anyone's got any questions. Please whack them in now. This is your 30-second warning. Again, don't have to be related to what I've talked about. I think that's it. Yeah, I think we're good. If you still have a question and I cut you off, put it on the video still, just comment it on it because I'll still see it and I'll either respond to you on the post or in the next video or in private if you prefer. As always, you can always send me questions. I don't mind answering them at all on Facebook or email, nathanbancroftnutrition@gmail.com. I think that's it. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for tuning in, mate. Enjoy Lake Michigan. I think it's, what time is it now? 20 past 8 in the UK, so I'm on wind down. So, right, have a good one, guys. Again, if you have any questions or anything in the meantime, do still put them on. Have a great weekend, and I shall see you soon, hopefully. Thank you, bye.